Hey everyone, my name is Drake and I'm the host of the Drake Martinez podcast. This is my podcast and I'm pretty much going to be shoot from the hip. I'm going to have new episodes coming out every Friday. So stay tuned for that. If you're into music, if you're into current events, politics, music history, history in general, this is going to be the podcast for you. Probably have some friends and family on during some of the episodes, and maybe some of the episodes will just be a lot like this, with me just, talking about what's on my mind and saying things that are relevant to what's going on in the world today. So a little bit of background about me. I grew up in Boston, and without telling you how old I am, back when I was growing up, there wasn't really any internet, and me and my friends played outside pretty much from the time that like school got out all the way until like sunset, until like a little while after. And we played games. We had video games back then, but not really. It wasn't really like that cool to be sitting around inside all playing video games all the time. But for the longest time, I have always been into music, and I want to say like ever since I was in like middle school, which was like around the time that like Blink-182 became really popular, and Korn was a really big band back then, really popular. Limp Bizkit, and back then like I was actually like more into like rap. Like the rap back then that was really popular was like Puff Daddy. I'm pretty sure back then he was called Puff Daddy. I'm not really sure. Like I know he's like Diddy or whatever, but back then he was called Puff Daddy. And it was like right around the time, maybe a couple years after Biggie Smalls got killed and Tupac got killed. And so I was like really into like Puff Daddy, Nas, who else? Mace, a lot of those kind of guys from like Bad Boy Records and things like that. So, me and my cousin were really into that, and I grew up like in mostly like a black Hispanic neighborhood in Boston. But when I heard Blink-182, I was like, I really love this kind of music, man. This music's so cool. But none of my friends really liked that kind of stuff. So it was like kind of like what we back then would like people would be like, oh, that's white people music. But I was like, I can't really help it, man. I really love white people music. And I would deny it to myself for a long time, and just until I just couldn't anymore. And I think I remember like I saw like Jimi Hendrix playing the guitar on TV, and that kind of just like blew my mind, because like in my neighborhood, like white people played instruments, and like black people and Hispanic people played did hip hop and rap, and DJing, and that was like how things were. So I was like, hey mom, like I didn't know like black and Hispanic people played guitar, and she was like, oh yeah, honey, like Hendrix played guitar, and like Santana, there's tons of people. She's like, do you want to play guitar? And I was like, yeah, I do actually. So not that long afterwards, she took me to in Boston, we had this place called Daddy's Junkie Music, or Daddy's Music Junkie, something like that. And it's like pretty much like a local guitar center, like just a music shop, and they had lessons. So one of my teachers, a great guy named Nick Vecchio, was my guitar teacher, and I took like 1 or 2 lessons with him. And then like my first guitar lesson, because I saw Hendrix play the guitar with like a lefty style, I thought like that's how you played. And I thought that you played by like moving the tuning pegs. So I was like moving the tuning pegs. And then I brought my guitar in, and he was like, hey, what's up, man? Nice to meet you. And right away I just felt comfortable, and he's like, well, let me see your guitar. Let's make sure you're in tune. So he was like, man, some moron like really got this thing out of tune. And I was like, oh, that totally wasn't me. But, the years went on, and then maybe like 2 or 3 lessons after that, my brother came in, and I convinced my brother. I was like, he's like 1 year, he's literally like 13 months younger than I am. And I was like, bro, let's do a band. Instead of playing guitar, play bass guitar. And that ended up being actually probably one of the best decisions of our lives. My selfish, like, hey, don't take the glory and play guitar. Play bass guitar was like probably one of the best decisions for us, because we learned to play music. And I think that's like the one thing, or one of the main things, that a lot of people learning to play guitar or bass guitar or things like that, like they, I was definitely there back then, which is like you're thinking about playing the instrument and you're not thinking about playing music on the instrument. And I think that's when you start to really progress in your musicianship, is when you're like, this is just a medium in order for me to make music. And I'm not just playing the instrument. The instrument is my connection to be able to make music. But anyways, back then, we were still getting the hang of things. And we were doing our best Blink-182 impression. And we saw, like, we were like, hey, let's find, all we gotta do now is find a drummer. So we posted up an ad. And the ad, like, got responded to, like, right away. And it was by this awesome dude named Mike. I'm not going to say his last name. But he's pretty much, like, a really, really super talented multi-instrumentalist. He's probably touring with, like, major bands right now. But Mike was such a super talented musician, and then like we just grew exponentially, like working with him. Mind you, back then I'm like 12, my brother's like 11, and it didn't really take us too long before we got our first album like completed. I wouldn't say it was like published because it was just like a demo. It was just like on a CD that we did like on a 8-track or whatever, but we ended up paying some guy like maybe like $120 or $200 or whatever, and he recorded and like mixed and mastered the demo for us. But it never went anywhere. But that was our last album. Our band back then was probably called like Stealth 115, like a total Blink-182 ripoff. And our album name was actually kind of cool. It was called like The Melancholy Turtle or something like that. I don't remember. It was something like that. It was like a melancholy turtle. It was a really sad turtle. But that, and then, life sort of like took a lot of like weird turns from me in particular. Like, my mom had cancer, and, I started working all the time, and I took the role of being like the eldest son, like really, to heart. And I kind of put my dreams on hold to take care of my family. And then like I was like so kind of like just like depressed about it back then. And because my mom was sick, and then like I'm putting my dreams of playing music on hold. And it really made me like a really angry young person. It was like not a good place to be. And at a certain point, I started having, mind you, this is like the height of the Iraq War. It's like probably like 2005. It's like right when at this point I'm graduating from high school. And, I'm still playing guitar, but like I'm not playing in bands anymore. My brother started transitioning to playing in more bands, and he started transitioning to playing the guitar primarily. So he had a very super amazing foundation of a bass guitarist, but started becoming a really, really talented guitar player and songwriter. He was almost from day one, he was a very talented songwriter. The first album was a lot of him. I could like write riffs and write like parts, but he could write songs, and so like we always had such great times together, and he started playing in more and more bands and started like really, really progressing, and there I wasn't. I was working primarily, and I'd say it wasn't until like I got to after college, because my brother was like, "Hey, bro, let's start just like jamming." So we started jamming, and then that became like a thing that we like started to like create our own sound. That was like a lot of like funk and like alternative rock, and that was like sort of like the beginning of like a project that we started calling the Water Bear. And we took the Water Bear to the West Coast. We left Boston and moved to Los Angeles after like things just like started moving towards a, like kind of just like a dead end. We were just like, hey, you know what? We've been here for a long time. Let's move on and do something fun. Let's do something new. And I realized like I had like a lot of friends on the East Coast that were from like the West Coast or from the Midwest or the South or the Pacific Northwest, and they all came to Boston for growth. And I was like, you know what? That's something that like I really think that I should do, is leave my hometown, go someplace new and start a new life. And that ended up being an amazing decision. So I think around like 2013, 2012, somewhere around there, me and my brother moved to Los Angeles, California from Boston. And that was a great decision. I started playing in a lot more bands. I started doing a lot more projects, studio work, a lot of shows, and a lot of rehearsals for music that like I didn't really even like wasn't really that much of a fan of, like pop and you know, I'm actually a big fan of like math rock, but like I wouldn't say it's like my forte. I'd say my forte is like funk, R&B, like soul, and like that kind of stuff. But you know, not math rock and not like Tool kind of like hardcore metal like rock. I guess math. I guess like Tool kind of stuff. But those years went on, and then ended up having some good years and some bad years, and joined the military, and then COVID, and now I'm getting towards the end of my contract, and things are starting to wind down. So I started an album with a friend from my military service and on active duty, and then a person that's local here in San Diego where I live, or where I'm stationed rather. But this is where me and my wife are going to be living, where we do live now. But we're looking for a house and whatnot. So yeah, the band sort of like picked up where my old band with my brother left off, and we took the sound that my brother and I developed, and I made it my own. I further just made it my own, and then made some songs with it, and then I went to go publish on DistroKid just to kind of like see what would happen. I was like, I'm not ready to publish, but I just want to do like a mock run to see like how this works. So then it got to the bottom, and it was like record label, and I was like, well, I don't have a record label, and it said just make one up, and I was like, man, if I can just make up a record label. I mean, it literally says that on DistroKid. So for those of y'all that don't know what DistroKid is, it's an amazing distribution service where, let's say you're an independent artist and you want your music to go out to Spotify, iTunes. Oh, man, excuse me. Let's say you want your music to go out to Spotify, Apple, Tidal, all these like major music platforms, streaming platforms. You don't have to like individually go in and do them and like figure out all that kind of stuff. You just make a DistroKid account and they will distribute it for you, and everything will be pretty much like streamlined. The only thing that's not going to be streamlined is like your artist like profile and bio. For that, you're going to have to go into those individual accounts once you've been distributed and have them set up. And the amazing thing is it's also going to get you on like social media accounts like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, so that people that are making reels can use your music, and your music might catch on. Like I know that like some of the music that I published got used on reels. My song "Foosball in Mexico" got used on a reel. And then my dog has a really popular Instagram account. She's a corgi, so people go crazy for her. And a lot of those videos have gone like super popular. So you can have your music on there too, and you get like basically like views and points, or views and credit for the audio that people are using to make the reels that they're using your songs, or if you're using your songs and reels that go big. So yeah, you'll get that credit for that, which is really cool, and it'll get distributed throughout the whole thing. So I guess it'd be like a plug for DistroKid. They're not paying me any money. If anything, I'm paying them. I pay them like, I think it's like $70 a year for that service, but it's super worth it. It saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of money, I think, in the long run. And then it's also like a great way to make passive income. So that once your stuff's distributed and published, then like you're making royalties on that on your published art at that point. So that was a really unique experience for me. And then I'm in like my late mid 30s at this point, and I finally was able to do what I've always wanted to do, which was publish an album. And I did the instruments, the performance, the lyrics, vocals, the audio engineering, the production, like producing, recording, all that stuff, mixing, mastering. So I'm really proud of the work. I learned a lot. I learned like a lot about that process, but then also like what I would do differently in the future. So look out for that. That's going to be on the LP. So my band is called, again, The Water Bear. And then the album that we just released is called Fujiwara Effect, Fujiwara, and then EFFECT. That's Fujiwara Effect by The Water Bear. It's on Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, enough with the shameless plugging. Let's get back into like music. So now that I'm done introducing myself and letting you know like who I am, as far as like, we already discussed like my instruments and all that kind of stuff, a little bit, a lot about who I am, where I grew up, my involvement in music, all that kind of stuff. Owner of a record label, a very small record label. And I'm super thrilled with where I'm at in life. And I thought I would do this podcast to kind of share where I've been, what I'm doing, and where I think a lot of musicians will gain from my personal experiences. So I'm going to kind of like end this podcast with one of those major things. And then, so this first podcast will be like brief intro as to like who I am, why you should or could possibly care about what I have to say. And one thing that I've learned over the years that I think any musician can really benefit from. And I think if you listen to my story, what you'd understand is that it's never too late. Is my album going to be like an overnight success? Probably not. Do I really care? No, I don't. I did the publishing for this album and did all this work for it for so many years because I wanted to, because it was fun, because whether or not I make money from it is not important. What is important, I'm not going to take money. I'm not going to say no to money. Money is power. Money is freedom. Actually, it's more like freedom than power. But it's the power and the freedom to do what you want in life. And that's an amazing thing. But I make that regardless because of my job. I make decent money doing my job. I'm not like super wealthy, but I'm not broke. So I'm in a good spot. Will I say no to more money? No. But regardless if this album makes money or not, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do another one. I'm probably going to do a couple more projects. I'm probably going to do another one that's like reggae. And I'm probably going to do another one that's like Christian reggae. And that's just because that's what I love to do. And I encourage anybody out there that is really into music and is like, well, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to make any money off it. I don't know. Stop worrying about that and just do it. Just do it because you love it. Network with people. Learn new skills. Pick up another instrument. And really just make it your own and have fun with it. For so many years, I was so worried about money, about not making money doing this and supporting myself, that it was just wasted time. It was time that I wasted where I could have just been having fun with it. And thank God that I'm at a place now where I'm having fun with it. And I do so much work for it, not because I think like it's going to blow up, but because it's so much fun. It's so much fun to create music, and to be so expressive and to excel at your instrument and to learn new ones and to compose a song and to put all of that onto a piece of art, like an audio file that people from all around the world can listen to. I'm super proud of like the fact that like I look on my Spotify and it's like 10 people from 10 different countries have listened to it. It's not a whole lot of people, but it's cool, man. It's so cool to see. Like all of this stuff, dude, is so amazing. The way that technology and streaming services have made the world and like the unobtainable like so much closer. to like the individual musician, like the independent musician that's like trying to make things go. It reminds me a lot of like the Dave Grohl book that I read. I think it's like Storyteller, Dave Grohl, the Storyteller. I really recommend this book if you haven't read it. And Dave Grohl sort of has the same or a very similar epiphany when he was at a local punk music show when he went to Chicago as a young man. He's probably like 13, 14 years old, probably 12 around there. And he saw punk rockers just doing everything themselves, making their own demos, booking their own shows, like kids, 13, 14-year-old kids in Chicago, like doing all this. And then like their music was getting spread all around Chicago and like all around the country actually because of like underground music. And then like I think streaming services like Spotify, like, utilizing like Facebook for promotion, Instagram, like Twitter, all these things have made this world that was like the 90s of like TRL, MTV, Live Nation, like all these things that made big music like so unattainable, has brought that closer and has made that like so much more of a realistic goal for every independent artist out there, that you can do it with a little bit of time and effort and money. You can get your art out there, and it might not pick it up. It might not pick up. Who cares? Still, just do it. Just have fun with it. I really can't express like how much fun it's been. And if I get like 10, 20 new listeners, I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. That's so cool. Is it 2 million? No. But who cares, man? It's so much fun. I hope that a lot more people that are listening to this can take that experience that I had of all these things that have happened in my life, to be in my mid-30s, like publishing my first album, to be like, I can do it too. I might be 50, I might be 60, but I've been working on these songs for like 10, 20, 30 years, and I've always wanted them just to get out there. And you will feel so much better about getting that project done. So get out there, make music, have fun with it. Have fun with your instrument, meet up with people, learn new skills, and just do it. And feel free to visit my website. It's Titus Flamingo Records. It's TITUS, flamingorecords.com. And you can see all the artists that are on there. It's not that many. And then like bios and all that kind of stuff. And feel free to shoot me some love on the social media. I got a Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And follow me, and we can link up and network and and support each other. I think that's another thing that I learned about this that's like really cool, is that like the underground music scene, or like people out on Facebook and things like that, independent artists are really into like supporting one another. And if you can make that happen with other people in your area or online, it's really cool. It's a really cool spot to be in. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for this first episode. Thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Drake, and thanks for your time and visiting us. So I think next week, I'm going to talk a little bit more about musicianship and about like things that I've done in the past or in now that have increased my musicianship, and over time, things that I've noticed about like changes in the music industry. Not just about like things like DistroKid and the things that I talked about in this podcast, but about the change in dynamics, or like complication, or like songs being like complicated, things like that. So stay tuned for that next week's episode. And again, my name is Drake, signing off for Drake Martinez Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.